Hi everyone, John here from LookSmart Home Inspections in New Jersey. And one of the things that is a little challenging about the home inspection career is that sometimes you have to deliver bad news to your client. Now the clients, in New Jersey, houses are super expensive. They've probably been looking, for a house for months now, right? And then you do the home inspection, they're along with you, you're delivering the news. And, over time, over that 3 or 4 hour course of that inspection, you're finding a lot of deficiencies and a lot of problems in the house. And sometimes, that news is hard to deliver because these guys, a lot of times they're young, it's their first house, but it's our job to deliver that news. And, sometimes, deals don't work out or houses don't get bought. And it's sometimes not the big issue or the two big issues. But what I find more is the culmination of a lot of smaller issues that just compound. And if you take a lot of smaller issues, that can add up to a lot of money, to repair. And I find that that's really the problem with these homes, is that we find so many small to medium-sized problems. And that causes the buyer to say to themselves, hey, I don't want to get in over my head. So, I implore people who are selling homes, do the maintenance, do the small things, correct those small issues so they don't compound. So, you shouldn't think it's just that one or two big issues that are going to make your real estate transaction fall through, when essentially it's the smaller things all adding up to the buyer. And that's the issue that I'm finding, is that lack of maintenance and lack of repair to homes. And if people would just do the maintenance and take care of those problems as they arise and not let them build up, you would have a greater chance of having a buyer go through and a cleaner home inspection. So just something that was on my mind, and I just wanted to put it out there. So I haven't done a defects video in quite a while. So here's a few of the defects that I've recently found in homes here in New Jersey. Maybe you can relate these defects to a house that you're living in, or a house that you're buying, or maybe you just want to learn about defects that we find during a home inspections. Anyway, thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon. One thing you want to watch out for is when you look at a roof are these boot flashings like this around the plumbing pipe penetrations. These are waste stack vents, come up through the roof, and you can see that water can just go in there. Over time, this boot flashing is going to get brittle and significantly deteriorate. Water is going to get in here and cause damage into our attic. So for sure, these old boot flashings are leaking. We have a roof that's about 20 years old. But generally, we don't see the boot flashings in this poor a condition here. So we'll recommend near-term replacement of the roof. But even before that, these boot flashings should be replaced as well, because these are going to, for sure, just leak down into the attic space. Looking at this, where this chimney comes up through the roof, and there's no flashing here. We can see the gap in the mortar developing right at the base of this chimney, where the chimney comes up through the roof, and water can easily penetrate this area and go down, enter into our attic, or even worse. So this is something that should be corrected. This addition on this house is probably like 25 years old, and they never had a proper chimney flashing here. There's no base flashing, there's no counter flashing. So this is an area of vulnerability for sure, especially when you get this mortar movement right here and this mortar shrinkage. So water can just enter right here and enter into our attic space. So this is something definitely you guys want to keep your eye out for when you're looking for a house. Looking at this chimney crown here, and we see gaps developing right in our chimney crown. Water's going to get in there and it's going to make our crown loose, just like this here. Very heavy. We don't want this to fall off the roof. We want this properly secured and sealed, just so we don't get water damage in here. Water is our enemy of masonry chimneys, so if water enters here, it's going to freeze and thaw and can cause damage to the chimney down below. So the idea of a chimney crown is to protect the top of the chimney and direct water away from the top. But here we have a chimney crown that's installed the majority flat. We want that crown gently sloped away from the house, or gently sloped away from our chimney top in these terracotta pipes, so water gets directed away. There's also no drip edge under here, which is required, so water doesn't come down, hug the edge of the chimney cap, and then run down the face of our chimney. So a few problems here, nothing that's too an emergency, but for sure this has to be corrected. We're not supposed to have electrical panel boxes in kitchen cabinets. The problem here is that people are going to store material here. They're going to put cereal boxes, other combustible material, and we can't have anything combustible in the vicinity of the electrical panel box. Having the panel also in this cabinet, there's not enough access to the left and the right side, plus the cabinet is very deep. So that's going to make that panel box cover very challenging to remove, creating an unsafe condition for an electrical contractor who needs to work on this panel. It's going to be challenging to remove this panel because this is a small unit and there's not a lot of places to put it. But as a home inspector, I have to call this out and recommend that our new buyer relocates this panel box just for safety reasons. So we don't really want any kind of electrical panel boxes, sub-panels in cabinetry. Well, what am I looking at here? This is a deck connection to the house. And we can see here that our joist hangers only have a couple of nails here and here. That's what's supporting the joists to this ledger board right there. So our ledger board is drastically undersized. These joist hangers should fit completely on that ledger board to make for a proper and tight connection from the deck to the house. So when decks fail, they generally fail at this connection. So this is a very important aspect of deck safety. And if we only have about a half of a joist hanger that's supporting, this very large deck, that's going to be unsafe and inadequate. So this is something that's kind of a big deal, and it's difficult to fix because this deck is already in place, and so this is going to be kind of a big deal to fix. We also have these wide gaps between the undersized deck ledger and the foundation wall where pests and water can enter. Right here I can probe directly through that, so we have really a significant deck connection issue here. I'm at the other end of the deck now, and we can see the problem. There's no deck connection here at the bottom of this joist hanger. We're just supporting this deck by the upper nails. The bottom of the joist hanger here is just hanging in the breeze. And this is a really large deck. So this is why we do home inspections, folks. This is a main electrical panel box. We see a lot of mice droppings at the bottom of this electrical panel box here. That's what these black droppings are. So mice are getting into our panel. We don't want this because that can be a significant electric shock and fire hazard because they like to chew the wiring. If they chew the wiring, arcing can happen and you can have an electrical fire. Also, sometimes the mice will die in here, creating an electrical hazard because they die inside the electrical panel box. So this is something that should be corrected for sure. But the house has a rodent infestation also. They're treating for mice because I see a lot of these bait stations. However, there's a lot of rodent activity in this home, and this is something you do not want for both electrical shock hazards and fire hazards, and also for health issues. So a lot of rodents in this home we're looking at today. Make sure you check your deck footings. Look at this. That's what's holding up a deck, and that was just on a piece of slate with no footing. You can't have that deck support post directly on a piece of slate, which is all cracked. You're not transferring that load down to a proper footing, and you have to have that. Especially in New Jersey, footing has to go below the level of the frost line. But here we have basically zero support for the center portion of this deck. When you get up on a roof surface, you want to look for areas like this for excessive shingular granular wear. There's no actually protective granular material in these areas of this roof right here. So we have that ultraviolet light penetration. It's going to cause damage to the roof surface. So I'm not really sure what happened here, but this is pretty localized. No granular material here. We do have granular material here. So we do know that this roof is like 20, 25 years old. So we're going to recommend for sure near-term replacement. But we have this sort of localized granular loss right here. I'm not really sure where it's coming from. So as a home inspector, we don't know everything. I'm going to go back and I'm going to do a little research and determine the cause of this issue here. Stucco exterior of the house, and we have our stucco below the grade line right here. So we have stucco in the soil about 4 or 5 inches. So what that's going to do, it's going to create areas of vulnerability for sure, because it makes the stucco and home more vulnerable to termite, carpenter ant, and wood rot issues, because we have that stucco below the ground. And usually this is 100% against manufacturer's requirements for stucco installation. And so this is a pretty significant defect, because how do you fix it? We have 4 or 5 inches of stucco below ground. We can probably regrade. Maybe we can cut our stucco off here. But when we go inside, we're going to be definitely looking for water penetration in the basement, behind the box plate area, behind the sill plate area, to see if we have any issues with this. But this is kind of a big deal. It's really hard to fix at this point. So they're using an existing foundation as a support for the new porch or deck. And you can see all these gaps under the foundation, under the sill plate right here, just resting on that couple of blocks here. But we have all these open areas of daylight. So we don't have a good connection or any connection between the foundation wall and the structure underneath this porch. So this is something that we're going to have to reblock and correct, just to give that some support, and hopefully we'll be able to figure out a way to secure this sill plate, or this plate right here, to the top of the foundation wall, because I don't like the way that looks at all. And then we have this span right here that is just a 2x6 on its flat, and we can see that it's bowing down here. That's inadequately supported. And so we're going to have to tell a client also that correction is going to be needed here, because when we go up to the porch, we see a lot of deflection and movement, and we need some support here. So this should have really been a beam with a post down to a proper footing to support the span right here. We don't have that. So flippers are going to flip. Here we have a heating and air conditioning register located inside our garage here. And although this isn't a return, it's a register, it's going to put air out, it is still a carbon monoxide risk. And we don't want to see these inside a garage. So we're going to recommend to the client that they simply remove it and not have it here. We already have a gas-fired heater ceiling in the ceiling here, so we don't really technically need this register right there. Why air condition the garage? Doesn't make any sense. Plus it also creates a carbon monoxide risk. So we're going to recommend removal of this register. Can you guys see this black mold right here? This black mold right here is probably a mold called Stachybotrys. And a lot of times we'll find it in damp crawl spaces like this with high moisture content. And this is one of those molds you just don't want to have in your house. So this is a hazard. It should be properly removed, so the occupants don't get exposed to high levels of mold. Mold spores usually travel in an upwards direction. The kitchen is above us here. And so this is not an extremely large amount of mold right here, but definitely something that should be dealt with for sure. This chimney flashing right here, this is a very expensive house, but this chimney flashing is very, very poor. It's very, very small. It's not well attached to the chimney. It's not cut into the chimney. It's not installed correctly. There's no counter flashing. And this is an area of vulnerability for sure. So this chimney flashing has a lot of problems. I don't like this chimney flashing at all. when we go into the attic space, we're likely to find problems with water penetration under this chimney. And this is one of the 2 chimneys on this. This is a pretty big, expensive house. So you would think that they would have some, you know, better flashing details here at the base of the chimney. But this is very vulnerable to leakage. And, you know, make sure you look at your chimney flashings on homes you're going to buy, and also your own home, and make sure they're in good condition and installed correctly. This one has a lot of defects.